Hello.
then
I want to welcome everyone today. Thanks for joining us. My name is Bonnie Thompson. I am a family leader working with Mass Family Voices, a project of the Federation for Children with Special Needs. I will be facilitating today's webinar entitled Special Needs Pooled Trust, an important tool for families whose children have disabilities. For those of you joining us for the first time, we'd like to welcome you and share with you more about our work at the Federation. The Federation for Children with Special Needs started in 1974 by a group of parents who formed a coalition that pushed to get the first special education laws in the country passed. For over 40 years, the Federation for Children with Special Needs has provided information, support, and assistance to parents of children with disabilities, their professional partners, and their communities. Along with hosting today's webinar, the Mass Family Voices projects helps families access and advocate for quality health care and insurance coverage for their children with special needs. We also moderate an active listserv of parents and professionals who share ideas, information, and resources to support and empower families. We'd like to attend to a few technical details right now. Please be advised that everyone will be on mute except for our presenter. If you have any questions, please use the webinar box to type in your questions. We'll answer them at the end of the presentation during the question and answer period. This webinar will be recorded and archived at a later date on the Mass Family Voices at the Federation's website. Today's webinar will be presented by attorney Pamela Tames, who serves as the Plan of Massachusetts in Rhode Island Incorporated as the Executive Director. Pam brings 20 years of experience developing and leading programs in the nonprofit, health, legal, and human services sector, serving vulnerable individuals and families. Pam has engaged in individual and policy advocacy, presented at professional conferences, and published several journal articles as well as a book chapter. Her compassionate promotion of and caring for the health and well-being of others, particularly people with disabilities, has defined her career. Pam aims to raise awareness of the services and care the plan provides and to expand its reach among persons with disabilities. Welcome, Pam.
Thank you so much. First of all, thanks to Mass Family Voices Project for hosting this webinar as part of its education series. And thanks to all of you who are attending today and wanting to learn more about this topic. So I want to assure all of you that I will get through the basics today, and I also will make sure to leave time for questions at the end. If for some reason there are many questions that would take us above the hour time limit, I also want to say that I'm going to look at those questions and respond to them at another time. And so I want to make sure that everybody gets what they want to get out of this webinar. Let me just say first and foremost, Plan of Massachusetts and Rhode Island, the purpose of the organization, the reason for its being is to administer two special needs pooled trust. And I'll go into in a little while what those trusts are and how they're different, but that is what we do every day of the week. And that is our way of serving the community of people with disabilities and their families. So what are special needs trusts? Essentially, a legal document that allows money to be set aside for a person with a disability that is intended to help preserve the money for that person while at the same time protecting his or her access to public benefits such as Medicaid and supplemental security income. How does it work? And why is it necessary? So if a person with a disability has as little as $2,000 in savings, that small amount of money could jeopardize his or her eligibility for public benefits. Money, however, that's held in a trust, a special needs trust, is not counted toward assets related to eligibility for public benefits. So if that same $2,000 is held in a special needs trust, it does not or should not jeopardize eligibility for public benefits. A little bit about how those funds can be used. Funds in a trust can be used to pay for necessities that are not covered by public benefits, can also be used for what I would call extras that enrich a person's life. So, different forms of entertainment, electronics, and whatnot. The list is not exhaustive, but I just want to give you a sense of how the money can be used, and we'll talk a little bit more later on about it. Who is eligible to have money put aside in a trust for them? Any person who is disabled according to the Social Security Administration guidelines. So if an individual is on SSI, Supplemental Security Income, or SSDI, that person is eligible. We also see people who have not yet applied for SSI or SSDI, but have a history of physical or mental conditions which are well documented, and those people may also be eligible. The list that you see, the list of conditions that you see on this slide, are just a small number, just a few of the conditions that people who come to see us and who participate in the trust have. There are many others. So the next question that I think it's important to answer is, who can put money into a special needs trust? And in order to answer that question, I need to distinguish between something called a first-party trust and a third-party trust. A first-party trust, as you see on the right side of the screen, is something that is funded by the individual person with his or her own money, or created for a minor by a parent or a grandparent, legal guardian of the court, thinking about somebody who has responsibility for caring for that minor, okay? On the other hand, the third-party trust is created for a person by someone else. So created by created for an adult by someone else, family or friend, with that other person's or person's money. Okay, they could come in similar ways, through inheritance, through an insurance policy, through award from a lawsuit, from savings, okay? But the key difference is, whose money is it? Okay, so with a first-party trust, it's the individual putting money into a trust account. With a third-party trust, it's somebody else putting money in for that individual. Another distinction between the two is that with a first-party trust, one funds it immediately. In other words, one deposits money immediately. With a third-party trust, it can be funded immediately, or it can be funded in the future. So some people don't have money to fund a trust right now. They will only have it later on, let's say through an insurance policy, right? That can be done. The account can be opened now, and it can be funded at a later date. Okay, so what is a pooled special needs trust? Up until now, I've talked about what a special needs trust is. What does it mean to have a pooled special needs trust? And all that means is that it allows a nonprofit organization like Plan of Massachusetts and Rhode Island to pool the funds of many different people. Okay, so each individual that works with us has their own separate account. Okay, we have over 800 people and families working with us. Each of them has their own separate numbered account. Each one gets an accounting, a demonstrated balance of what's in their account, what's been used in their account, what's been deposited into their account, it's separate. But by pooling the funds for investment purposes, we keep the administrative costs and the overhead lower. Why, why join a pooled special needs trust? What's special about it? What are the benefits? All right. So you have something called a standalone trust. That's when someone would go to an attorney and set up their own customized trust and deposit their money, and also assign someone to be a trustee of that trust. With a pooled special needs trust, again, you work with a nonprofit organization. We do not have a minimum amount of assets that need to be deposited into the trust. We recommend that people deposit at least $10,000 because there are fees, and we think it makes more sense if you have at least that amount of money. We don't require it. For standalone trusts, you will often hear that $500,000 or $1 million is the minimum amount that needs to be set aside in the trust, that needs to be set aside for an investment firm to accept that, that trust account. So our pool trust allows more people with more modest size trusts to participate and get the benefits of preserving funds and protecting benefits. The other thing that, that a nonprofit like ours has to offer is that we are a professional trustee. Okay, so it's the nonprofit organization that oversees a pool trust that serves as the trustee. Having a professional trustee relieves family members of this responsibility. And I'll talk a little bit more in the next slide about what the responsibility is, but basically you've put the onus on a professional to make sure that all of the rules are followed, that benefits are not jeopardized, that funds are invested and preserved, and we have expertise with public benefits protection. We do it every day. The third thing, and this is not unique to pooled special trust, but really to plan, we have social workers on our staff. Actually, half of our staff are social workers, and those are the people who are primary contacts with each of the beneficiaries in the family. They are social workers with decades of experience working with people with disabilities and elders, and in addition to having expertise with public benefits, they are a very compassionate and sensitive group of people, and I'll talk a little bit more about what services they offer. So what does the trustee do? Right, I talked about professional trustee. Well, what does it mean to be a trustee, any trustee? The trustee is responsible for ensuring that money in the trust is used only to pay for items and services that enrich the life of the beneficiary, the person for whom the trust is established. So that is a key in a special needs trust. Anything purchased, any monies used from the trust must be used for the sole benefit of the beneficiary. They can't be used for anyone else. All right, there's one exception to that, which I'll talk about in a little while, but think about it, sole benefit. So one of the things that the trustee does is reviews every request for disbursements, for money to be expended from the trust, to make sure that the person who's going to benefit from this expenditure is going to be the beneficiary. Okay. The other thing that the trustee does is we take care of, the nonprofit organization takes care of all the accounting, the investments, the tax preparation documents that need to be prepared. and payments for various living expenses that are incurred by persons with disabilities. What I mean by living expenses is often we have beneficiaries and families who we work with who would benefit from somebody else paying their regular bills, or any of their bills for that matter. So they will ask us to do that. They will send the bills, phone bills, cable bills, bills from deliveries that they've made online, purchases that they've made online, and they will ask us to pay those bills directly out of their trust account. And we've been doing this. Attorneys, social workers, financial experts, we have been doing this for 20 plus years to make sure that people are, to help people use their resources to take care of themselves and to get the goods and services that they need to enjoy life. Who can benefit from participating in a special needs pool trust? I wouldn't say this list is exhaustive, but I tried to put together as many different ways of describing who could benefit from participating as I could think of. So if a family is caring for a loved one with a disability and wants to make sure that there are resources set aside and support for the person after they no longer can provide it, one would think of a special needs pool trust. If a family is caring for a child, whether it be an adult child or a minor child, usually an adult child with a disability, they don't want to burden siblings or other relatives with managing the trust. They want a professional trustee. That would be another reason for coming to a pool trust like ours. Sometimes, as I said before, some people have difficulty managing their money. That might be another reason to come to the pool trust. An example I gave earlier, a personal injury settlement due to a disabling accident or injury. If that money from that settlement goes to the person with a disability, that can jeopardize their public benefits. So you want to put it in a trust so that those assets will not count as assets toward eligibility for public benefits. We also have people over age 65 who have disabilities. They want to preserve their assets. They want to become eligible for Medicaid and long-term care options, and they want other public benefits protected as well. And then, finally, for those people who really want a special needs trust but don't have a significant sum of money, either ever or today, a standalone trust will not be an option. So again, a pool trust allows people of all different means and needs to participate and benefit. So, what can money in a planned trust account be used to purchase? I talked about this before. As long as it is for the sole benefit of the trust participant. And a good example of an exception that I will share with you, and this just happened about a week ago in our office, is that there was a trust participant, and I will use the terms participant and beneficiary back and forth. I'm sorry if I'm confusing people. Same thing. You're participating in the trust, you're a beneficiary of the trust. So we had a participant say, I want to go on a vacation. And this is an adult with some very severe disabilities, physical disabilities, and absolutely needs someone to go on that vacation with her in order to do it. And so in that case, paying for a second person to go on the trip with the trust participant is for his or her sole benefit. It's not for the benefit of someone else, it's for his or her sole benefit. And so there's an excellent example of where the sole benefit will pay for more than an item or service for the one person. This next slide It's a sample of regular disbursements that we get requested every week. And when I say every week, I mean every week. We, with 800 plus folks in the trust, we expect that people will be coming to us every week of the year, every day of the week, with requests to disperse money from their trust accounts. Every week we get between 300 and 400 requests for disbursements, and every single week we respond to and fulfill those requests. And so literally every Monday is sort of the last day that all of the social workers come together and look at every request that came in for the prior week. By that, they have made decisions about each and every one of them, and later that day checks are cut. We cut them in our own office also to save on administrative fees and also on time, and by Tuesday afternoon those checks are going out to people. We feel very strongly that people who participate in their trust must have access to the funds, their funds, in a timely way. And if we get a request that we cannot approve, that is also due to the individual, that decision, in a very timely way. So if you see on the right-hand side of this chart, of this slide, there are certain items that we will not pay for. I will explain the first four. I think are self-explanatory. The fifth one, no gifts, it's because we can't pay for something that's not for the sole benefit of the individual. We can't say, oh sure, John, you can give a gift to Mary even though Mary isn't in the trust. We can't do that. The others that I should explain a little bit, if a person is on SSI, the trust cannot pay for rent, food, or utilities. That's not a trust rule, that's SSI. You don't want to get in-kind support for any of those things because the Social Security Administration will count that as income, all right? And then that will be a portion of your SSI benefits, or someone's SSI benefits will be deducted. Another thing to avoid is paying the rent or paying routine expenses of someone who lives in public housing or subsidized housing. And there was a decision in the federal courts of Massachusetts about a year ago that was very clear about this being a problem, about somebody using their trust funds to pay for rent and routine expenses, and they were penalized for that significantly. So we are cautious about that. We are aware of it. We talk to people about it, and that's just another example of where we are doing our job as a professional trustee to make sure that people do not lose their benefits. So service coordination, what does that mean? That is how we describe the work that our social workers do. Okay, they are all licensed social workers, but they're not working as therapy or therapeutic, or they're not working as counselors. Okay, and we want to be clear with people about that. They are helping people access the funds that they have put aside. They are helping people find resources that are appropriate for them, and they are making sure that people are getting the best out of the trust money that has been put aside by them or for them. All right, so upon enrollment, every beneficiary and often family members meet with the service coordinator. That person explains how the trusts work, how the funds can be used, talks to the individual and family about the public benefits, make sure that she or he knows exactly what the individual is getting or is applying for, talks about the expenses that she or he has, needs and wants, and helps to develop a spending plan. Because each person is different, right? Each person has a different amount of money set aside. They're of a different age. They have different health conditions. They have different wants, needs, and expenses. And so our service coordinator will take that first meeting to really get to know the person who is participating in the trust and his or her family members if they're involved in some way. And then that service coordinator will work with the individual on a going forward basis to pay for the items and services that the person needs and wants. Sometimes a participant's family member is involved, sometimes they're not. But the goal is, how do we enhance the person's life, the individual's life? How do we give peace of mind to his or her family? Now, the second part, I have the words upon funding at the beginning. As I said before, some people fund the trust up front and they want it to start working immediately. Then the service coordinator will start working immediately with the family. Some people say, no, I don't have money or I don't want to fund the trust right now, and I will enroll in the trust, or I will enroll my loved one in the trust, and then later on we're going to deposit money into the trust. And so in that case, the service coordinator will meet with the individual and the family. We'll do a check-in once a year, but there won't be any disbursements to talk about. There won't be any spending plan to talk about at this stage of the game. This next slide, where it says coming soon, it's described as case management. This is something that we are very seriously considering offering at Plan. In talking to people, in working with people, we hear that there is a significant unmet need for more, for families to have more services than we are perhaps providing or others are providing. So people like what they get from us and they wonder, can we get more? And so we've asked the question, how can Plan help? What can we do? And several of the activities that folks have talked about, and we've talked to both individuals, families, and professionals, are helping to monitor the living and working environments that somebody is in, advocating for services and benefits, providing some coaching or counseling, developing a very thorough life plan together, providing record keeping. We do budgeting and bill payment, but doing more of that, and then socialization. And so where are we with this? We've talked to, as I said, we've talked to a number of professionals and families. We are looking for what I would describe as pilot opportunities. People who know very clearly what they want, people who will talk with us about, you know, how we can put that together in a program for them, and people who have, you know, concrete expectations. I had a family, I did a talk a while ago, and I had a family member say, well, I want somebody to be just like me. I want them to do exactly what I do when I ask the question of how can Plan help. And I understand that feeling. I'm completely sensitive to it, but I also want to create something that we as an organization can create. I want to be pragmatic about what we can do as an organization and not envision us supplanting a parent or doing it exactly like the parent would do, because I think we would not be able to meet those expectations, and I think that there wouldn't be satisfaction in the end. So stay tuned. You know, as we develop this pilot program, we will talk about the details even more. let's see. So the next thing, how can money be withdrawn from a special needs trust? So when you think about the funds that are in the special needs trust, think of it as what they are going to pay for, whether that be for goods or services, okay? We cannot, under the trust rules, not just our trust rules, but how trusts work, we cannot pay money directly to the trust participant, all right? What we do is when the trust participant purchases something, or when a family member purchases something, we pay back that third party as long as we have receipts. We reimburse that third party, or we pay to the store or service provider. Again, you know, sending us a bill from somebody, we will pay that. We approve and we arrange for the payment of a wide variety of goods and services, and we work creatively to make sure that the way we pay for things out of the trust does not jeopardize a person's public benefit. So I think this is an important part of talking about what we do, is how much does it cost? So if one is setting up a first-party trust, it is either $600 or $750 for an enrollment fee, and that depends upon whether the applicant can sign for himself or needs someone to sign for him or her. With a third-party trust, which is a little different, the enrollment fee is $500, and that would be whether the trust is funded today or funded later. There is an annual fee for trusts that are currently funded. So what do I mean by that? If you come to plan and you say, I want to put, and I'm just going to pick a number, you know, out of a hat, I want to put aside $20,000 for my loved one. That's fine. And I want to do that right now, okay? So there is an annual fee that will be taken from that $20,000. All right, that covers the costs of investing the funds, that covers the costs of administering the trust, that covers the cost of the social workers. It's a global fee. We don't charge small fees for different activities. All right, but if you come to me and you say, I don't have money to put into the trust right now. I want to open up the account. I want to understand how this works, and I want to deposit money later on. There is no annual fee until the trust is funded. The fee schedule, which is listed at the bottom, is based upon the value of the trust over the course of a year. Okay, so it's 3% per year for the first $500,000, and it moves on from there. Now, some people say to us, wow, 3%, that's a lot of money. I could invest my money elsewhere for a smaller percentage. And the answer is yes, you can. But this is not just about investment management. This is about all of the services that we provide as a trust. And so this is a way for us to sustain ourselves, to be there for people 10 years, 20 years, 30 and more down the road. And the minimum annual fee is that if you have a very small trust, that's the annual fee that needs to come out every year in order for all the costs to be covered. Okay. I'm looking at time, and I want to make sure that any questions, do we have a lot of questions or a good time? Okay, so my partner here is telling me we have some questions, but we still have more time, which is great. So let me keep going. what happens to money remaining in a special needs trust after a participant dies? People want to know, where does the money go? Okay, so with a third-party trust, when a trust is created, the donor, the person who puts money into the trust, chooses where she or he would like any remaining funds to go after the loved one passes away. Okay? And if he or she wants, he or she can donate some of the remaining funds to plan. Doesn't have to, it's an option. Okay? Very different from a first-party trust, when you're the person putting away money for yourself. Okay? With a first-party trust, the applicant, the person applying, okay, the person who's going to be the participant, can also name those who will receive money after she or he passes. Absolutely can do it. However, before funds can go to others, there are some items that remaining funds must be allocated to first. Okay. Plan has a closing cost, so each time we close out a trust account, that's $500. A percentage of the funds goes to Plan's charitable fund to support folks with disabilities. And so if we have an account, a trust account open for less than 2 years, then the remainder percentage is 10%. If the trust account is open for longer than 2 years, then the remainder is 20%. The third piece of this that's very important, and what distinguishes a first-party trust from a third-party trust, is with a first-party trust there is a payback to Medicaid for the costs of medical care paid by Medicaid during the person's life. So what does that mean? At the end of a person's life, we at Plan have an obligation to report the person's death to the Medicaid office. Then the Medicaid office looks at whatever monies it paid for health care and sends us, meaning Plan, a claim for those monies. Sometimes the claim is very small. Sometimes the claim is very large. We have no way of knowing at Plan whether the claim will be high or low. Whatever number it's going to be, that accounting comes directly from Medicaid. So we have an obligation to pay out of the trust funds for that bill. Now, sometimes the bill is significantly higher than what's left in the trust. And in those cases, we give Medicaid whatever remains with a documented accounting of how the money was used over the entire lifetime of the trust. And that's it. Sometimes the Medicaid claim is very small. And then there are funds left in the special needs trust account, and those funds are paid to whoever was designated by the trust participant to receive those funds. And people ask me, how often does that happen? And I'd say at least half the time people get money sent back to their family, and on the other half of the time, if not more, the remaining funds go to Medicaid. I have a few more minutes. I'm going to stop at this moment. there is information here for about the ABLE account, which I'm sure some people are interested in. And so what I've done in the next two slides is put together a very basic outline of what the framework is for the ABLE account. I've also referred to two resources which I think are great. I would, if you are interested in learning more, I would strongly encourage you to go to those two resources now and continue to follow up, because as I'm sure you all know, ABLE is still evolving, you know, we're all learning about it at the same time. So I hope what I've shared is informative, and I look forward to answering questions. And if I don't get to all of your questions, I will take them with me and respond to them at another time.
Thank you, Pam. We do have a few questions, so which have gone in the chat box. Someone is asking if the assets such as a 529 college fund or other prepaid college fund, or possibly life insurance, if that could be used, rolled into the special needs pooled trust, or could they be used to start the trust?
So two parts here. I think you asked about a 529 account and about insurance policy. There are ways in which an insurance policy, or the proceeds of an insurance policy, can be deposited into a special needs trust account or used to open up a special needs trust account. To be absolutely, or to answer that question very specifically, I would want to know more about who the policy is for, whose name is it in, and who the account would be for, all of that. A 529 account, so the question is, can an education account be transferred into a trust? And you know what? I have to say that is the first time that I have gotten that that particular question. I think it's a great one, and I would actually want, I want to say I want to look at that. I know that there are restrictions around the 529 account. I don't know how those restrictions apply if money leaves that account, or what happens to the benefits that you get from a 529 account if they were to be transferred into a special needs trust. You're getting tax-free benefits in a 529 account. The special needs trust is not a tax-free account. So I think there are some pieces of that to look at, and I'm happy to do some research and respond more fully a little later.
Okay, Pam, thank you. We'll look forward to hearing more about that, and we'll make sure that we'll send notice of the webinar when it's archived to the attendees, and we'll be if we have the information, we'll be sure to include that. We did have a few more questions come in. The next question is, can educational classes, continuing education, be paid for by the pooled trust funds?
Yes, as long as that education is for the sole benefit of the individual, and that is an excellent example of how I know several of our participants use their funds.
Okay, the next question. As we anticipate that our children will hopefully live long lives past our own, what happens if the plan runs into trouble and must close? What happens to the accounts?
Oh, wow. That also is a great question. Well, I'll say a few things. One is that the organization has been around for 40 years. We've been doing special needs pool trust for 20 years, and before that providing a variety of services to people with disabilities. We run a very conservative, or we manage very conservatively. What does that mean? We manage the monies that are deposited with us in a very conservative way. We have a long-term relationship with an investment firm, Cambridge Appleton Trust, who knows exactly what we do and why we do, and our responsibility as we see it is to make sure that that money is there when people need it. We have completely separate operating accounts and operating costs from the money that is in each of the trust accounts. We have them with different financial institutions. So I guess the bottom line is that, you know, like anybody else, I can't guarantee forever, but I can tell you that we work very diligently to make sure that we will be there tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow so that people can access their funds and know that they can access them.
Thanks, Pam. As maybe a follow-on question to that, is there a regulatory agency that has oversight over the planned pooled trust?
So the two federal government agencies that for which we look to, which have the rules that we follow, are the Medicaid agencies and Social Security. There is not a separate regulatory agency that has regulatory authority apart from the rules and regulations that are that have been created and that are you know, enforced to a certain extent by Social Security and Medicaid.
Okay, thank you. Someone has the question, can you open a pooled trust account for someone under 18?
Yes, and we absolutely have accounts open for folks under 18. You know, sometimes it happens through a personal injury settlement, and the family wants to make sure money is put aside for the child. Sometimes it's been court ordered. The court feels more comfortable with a nonprofit organization preserving the money and making sure that it gets spent well, spent wisely. But the bottom line answer is yes.
Okay, we've had someone who has raised their hand, but we don't have the capacity to open up the microphone to accept questions that way. So if you did have a question, if you could type it in the chat box, we'll be able to address that question with Pam. In the meantime, someone has asked a question that gets to the relationship building between the special needs individual and their trust administrator, and how that relationship is dealt with if there is any discrepancies or difficulties, and what are the kind of appropriate channels and supports for the individual should they have any disagreement with the trust administrator?
So, you know, one of the things that we think is very important is that from the beginning, the individual, the trust participant, be very much an active part of that discussion, okay? And some people would say to me, what happens if somebody has a serious disability that would interfere with their ability to do that? okay, but can we at least have them at the table? Can we at least introduce them at the first meeting? Can we give them some sense of who this person is? And there are certainly times that we have trust participants that are unhappy with the arrangements that their family has made. Let's take a situation where somebody has some mental health issues, and they see their adult siblings getting funds from the family in a more typical way without a trust, and then they see that their family has set up a trust for them, and they will have to follow a certain set of rules with regard to taking money out of the trust and whatnot. Again, it is our feeling that whether they feel good or not so good about it, we want to include them from the beginning and make sure that we all can work together. Because if it's not a situation where we can all work together, it's going to be very difficult down the road, whether the parent is there or not there. And we've had situations where the individual is so angry and so and sometimes threatening that he can make it impossible to work with him. And you have to have a supportive family member who's willing to work with you on it, to explain to you what the situations are, what works, what doesn't work. So we look at it from the beginning as an opportunity to work collaboratively and find out what the challenges are so that together with the family we can overcome them. And we have experienced people, who work with folks with all sorts of different disabilities, but we need that partnership, I think, is what is important.
So Pam, as an add-on to that, if there is a situation that is there's a kind of difficult relationship there and there isn't a trusted family member to support the individual, is there a kind of objective mediator or some other support that can exist for the individual as kind of brokering the relationship between the trust?
Yeah, that's a great point. And more and more I've been asking our social workers to evaluate this up front and to ask them to ask the family and the individual, who is someone that they trust? Who, not that that person is going to speak solely for them, but that person may hear things a bit differently and perceive things a bit differently and act as an, I think you used the word mediator, but act as an informal liaison. And so it's something I'd say over the past 6 months I've been asking our social workers to do, to identify that intermediary up front before there is a disagreement, before there are challenges, if the family can't play that role.
Okay, thank you. We have a few more questions here. Someone acknowledges that that you had said that the plan isn't regulated by a federal agency, but is the money insured if the plan dissolves?
So we have insurance, we have, your regular banking insurance for monies that are in the bank. We have insurance for monies in the trust. The investment company has insurance for monies in the trust. So yes, I would answer yes.
Okay, thank you. Does guardianship affect the relationship or eligibility of the participant? For example, if someone were to choose to have guardianship over their child once they turn 18?
No, we actually work with many people who serve as guardians, whether they be guardians of their own children or guardians of others. So we work with the guardian. We will work with the guardian directly.
Okay, thank you. So we have a few more minutes. That's all the questions that have been posted to the chat box. If there are any other questions, now would be the time to post them. We'll just give a few more, maybe just a few more seconds to allow that to happen. But in the meantime, Pam, we appreciate your being here today. I don't know if you have any kind of closing comments or additional points that you would like to share with us.
All I would say is that anybody who's listening, you are welcome to come to our website and learn more. You are welcome to contact us at the office to learn more. We get inquiries from people every day of the week, and we welcome that.
Okay, great. And now someone has asked the question, will the PowerPoint presentation be accessible? And we can make sure that that gets distributed. And of course, the archive of this webinar will be on the Mass Family Voices website, and we'll send out notice when that is available. So if there are no final questions, we can end the presentation. Thank everyone for attending today, and thank Pam for being here and presenting on the pooled trust plan of Massachusetts and Rhode Island. Have a good day. Take care.